Yes, people, Albert JTV match review time. But before we get into it, Euro 2020 is finally here. Is football coming home? Time will only tell. Welcome to Albert JTV. Yes, my people, and there you have it once again. Euro 2020. Good tournament so far, in my opinion, but I'll get the boys' judgment on it a bit later. Unfortunately, Dorsey can't make it tonight, but he passes on his wishes to us, and we'll get the stream cracking. Before I do that, I introduce my co-host, Schooner Souls. How you keeping, bruv? Good to see you again, man.
No, always good, man. Can't wait. Yeah, it's coming home like normal. Started off with a bang. I won't say too much, but the man them down the road, they couldn't replicate what we did. So yeah, let's get into it, lads.
But before we introduce my homie, my bro, JC, we're going to hit that time again. As you people know, let's hit the intro. Yes, people, and there you have it again. Smash the like button if you haven't already, and follow me on my Instagram and my Twitter, and the details are below the screen. So let's introduce my brother from another mother, man. JC. Bring in JC, Soulsy, bro. Yes.
What's up, people? Man.
JC, I'm glad to get you on over this series, man. Like I said, me and Souls were in discussions about this for quite a while. Because I was detox. I needed a vacation break, a sabbatical from Arsenal. I'm tired of talking about them, man. I'm being serious. Been the case for the last couple of months, if I'm being brutally honest. But yeah, man, Euro 2020, bro. Glad to get you on. Asked you a few days ago, agreed to come on. Yeah, it's good to get your input. Glad you tuned in. I saw you. Thank you for your support as always. Let's big up some people in the chat. Who's in there? JB's in there. There's quite a few. What's in there? Good win for England yesterday. Absolutely. Raheem Sterling scored his first goal in a major tournament. That's very. You know what? That dawned on me.
That can't be true. Serious.
He has not scored. Yeah, in the major tournament, his record's been not been great, man. That's why I've had a lot of fans sort of get on his case in terms of not even his inclusion for the game against Croatia, but the last few years of his England career, to be honest with you. Because to be fair to Sterling, before we get into it, JC, mate, one thing I do big him up for is he's got brilliant movement. Very, very rarely gets caught offside, and that's not by accident.
Oh yeah.
And like I said, Southgate has mad faith in him. So yeah, JC, sort of get into it, mate. Before we get into it, guys, follow my host Schooner Souls on Twitter. His handles there. Get him on his channel as well. Big up JC. Follow JC on Twitter on @jclegg28 and subscribe to his YouTube channel. People, as I always say, don't think about it. Just go and subscribe to my people. So yeah, JC, I'm gonna kick it off, mate.
Okay.
First things, I'm gonna do it a bit differently. What was your, before we sort of talk about the England-Croatia game, what was your expectations for England going into Euro 2020?
So when you look at some of the other teams that are in the competition, your France's, your Germany's, Portugal even maybe to some extent, Italy looked good the other night. I think for England, minimum expectation has got to be minimum semi-finals, pushing for that 100%. Final. When you look at what we did, 3 years ago now, we got to the semi-final of the World Cup, and we were unfortunately kicked out in the semis. So it's a smaller competition in the sense of the teams. And when you look at the players that are now in the England team compared to then, Calvin Phillips wasn't part of that setup. Reece James, Mason Mount, Foden. I could probably name about 8 different players that weren't part of that team 3 years ago that are now part of this team. Very, very exciting players. So, yeah, minimum for me has got to be be the semi-final.
Yeah, 100%. I'm gonna bring in Souls, and JC, I agree, man. Like, before I come to Souls, you know what it is? I'm laughing. It's not really funny, but like when England got to semi-finals 3 years ago, no word of a lie. I listened to I think it was BBC 606 at the time. The phone-in show after the England were out, and some people wanted Southgate gone then.
Yeah,
I just got to semi-finals, so. But it sounds crazy, but I understand. It's in a crazy way. I understand why fans were saying it, because we even say it fast forward 3 years later when we say, "Oh, you know what? England played Belgium twice, played Croatia, and we got found out." And he's beating Panama, but you can only beat who's in front of you. That's the first thing.
Oh,
but
yeah, 100%.
but I get people's sort of thing is England didn't come up against anyone decent until they played Belgium and then Croatia. So I think that's always sort of hung over some England fans' heads. And like I said, and Sol said it a few days ago, Southgate doesn't help himself.
No.
Not at all. So, so I was the same question to you. I don't think I really asked you when we done a preview show yet. What was your sort of expectations for England? Same as me and JC, or was yours a bit different?
I think it's got to be semi-finals. But if we come up against a potential finalist, such as like a France or something, then I can totally understand us getting knocked out. I'm not saying that it's acceptable, but it's got to be against someone that's like, okay, fair enough. Like they are like a France, for example, is world class. Or if you but I want to see us compete against a team like that. I don't want to get turned over. And I think otherwise it's got to be semi-finals. I think the team that we've got is more than good enough. A lot of them are winners. Look at Foden, very young, but he's won a Premier League Cup, 100%. FA Cup. He's won things, or he's been in a setup that's won things. Reece James, for example, won a Champions League. He was a mainstay in that team as well. So we even though we've got a very sort of young average squad, I think the average age is 24, I believe, or 23 or something like that. So one of the youngest squads in the Euros. But a lot of those players, even Saka, for example, won an FA Cup. So they've gone through the stage of winning things, which is crucial. I think once you know how to win something, you've got that mentality, and that sort of, if there is a blockade or a mental block, you can overcome it because you've done it before. So I hope, because of that sort of experience that these youngsters have gone through, I hope to have the buzz. And to be fair, like before we get in, obviously, I don't want to ruin what my review of the game is, but even when we've seen it, full of energy, and they seemed up for it, which was what I want to see. But the word decision that Southgate makes, that it doesn't help against Croatia, for example, starting long ball football, rather than let's break it down, let's kind of. But at least he's learned. That's the ultimate goal. Like yesterday was a really convincing performance. We did really well against Croatia, so. It's for me, he's done good things. Like we won our opening game for the first time in the Euros, got us to 2 semi-finals. So there are things favouring him, and he won a penalty shootout, which we tend to struggle with. So there's a lot of good things, but then I think when we lose, it's why we lose, is why we want him out. Yeah, and I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, no, well said, man. Yeah, JC, bro. How just to ask you, how different was the team lineup from what you saw yesterday? What did you have in mind in regards to what you actually saw? Was any surprises, or kind of what Sol's touched on in terms of one selection in particular for me anyway, which raised a few eyebrows, was Trippier at left back. So what was your sort of initial thoughts, what the team might be and what you saw?
I agree with. There were a few raised eyebrows. I think a lot of people thought that Grealish would start. One of our most creative midfield players for a long time. Comparisons to Gaza, Trippier at left back. He's a right-footed player, so you can't play with as much width. Down the line. Although it didn't transpire into that. Playing with 2 holding midfield players as well. There were a lot of eyebrows raised, should we say. But to my surprise, Phillips had an excellent game. He didn't hold anywhere near as much as I thought he would. But as the game went on, you saw why Southgate picked Phillips and Rice. You know, when you look at how good Kovacic is, Modric, you know, the amount of caps he's got for Croatia, the amount of experience that those two boys had in there. So you can kind of see it. But Trippier, he had a good game, but I was still surprised that he got picked. You have to ask yourself a question. You know, Chilwell, I know he played in the Champions League final not so long ago. Was there fitness issues there? You know, was there a niggle? Luke Shaw, I don't know. He obviously finished the campaign a while ago. So, yeah, he said experience. He picked him for experience. So, yeah, few eyebrows for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I didn't really understand. And people go, yeah, but we won. I said, but you can still sort of question things and ask why the logic as to why he's done that, because they're not unfit. And even at worst, if there was the issue with Chilwell or Shaw, you know, you could even have Saka there. So I was just a little bit. I was like, what? Why is Trippier playing left back? I know he's played there for a couple of games for England before, but that's not his position, man. Like, so I was a bit baffled, man. But just gonna say, I just want to get sort of Sol's view again. What your view, mate, in terms of like I said, we did a sort of combined team that we thought might be the pick, and I think we only picked about 6 players out of the 11, which is not really great because by trying to second guess Southgate is because I thought we'd play 3-4-3 and we didn't. So what can I say? But so what's your quick thoughts, mate?
Yeah, no, I mean, in hindsight, obviously, it was. I think the one sort of selection that I was buzzing about was Phillips, and I said it on the watch along as well. I was happy that Phillips and Rice were the 2 pivots rather than, you know, what I thought he might do is Jordan Henderson with Rice. I hope he's learned that, you know, this pivot works because they're even though they've got similar sort of characteristics, they're very different players at the same time.
Yeah.
Rice is very sort of defensive thinking and deep lying, or well, in the English setup anyway. And then you've had Phillips, who got given kind of a sort of a free roaming, structured setup. And again, as well, one of my first concerns was Trippier as a left back, because I'm like, you've got fit players that can play naturally in those positions. Yeah. I could understand, you know, if this was the 3rd group stage game, then I would have been like, fair enough, do what you want to do in it, like experiment a little bit, because especially if, let's say, we got the 2 wins in the first 2 games, and this was the 3rd game, and you wanted to just try a few things just to see how it works, I'd have been like, fair enough, you can do what you want. It's a write-off game. We don't need to win or draw, or even if we lose, it doesn't matter, we're through. But opening game, it was a bit of a risk. I don't know whether you can really say it paid off, because on the other side of the pitch, he had a poor performance in Kyle Walker. Absolutely shit performance, you know, to say the least. And then, do you know what it is, Raheem Sterling, like, I gave him a lot of stick. I think he deserved it as well.
You did in the watch along, Well, I'll clip that for a reason. Well, they called the end bit.
You know, like, I still stick by it. I don't think he had such an amazing performance. But like the thing that you picked up on, he is brilliant and not getting himself offside. For someone who sits on the shoulder of a defense to not be, I mean, if he does, it's like 1 a game, which is magnificent, because anyone who plays that sort of on the shoulder will get at least 4 or 5. You get peed off with the player just for, like, why are you offside for? And it's like Aubameyang. That's the perfect way to put it. Aubameyang is a similar player who likes to be on the last defender or the shoulder of the last defender and make that room in behind. But Sterling does it so perfect. I don't know how he does it. That is a next level IQ. But his finishing, man, honestly, like, I don't care. He is atrocious. But it justified the pick. He's the one thing I will say, Sterling is a very resilient player. He will still keep asking for the ball. He'll demand it. He'll try and make things happen. That game, I think Mount and Foden shouldn't play together. I just think there's just too much similarities, and we need someone who can get that ball and make something happen. And that's one thing we were missing, especially with Sterling being sort of the most advanced player. Kane wanting to play as a centre-back or a DM. I don't know what he was playing. He was not the striker, I can tell you that. And
Ross in the
it's
chat.
true. It is true though. It's actually, I said he's. To be fair, mine was worse. I said he's a glorified Iwobi, but like we'll move on. But yeah, no, that game needed a Grealish or a Saka or someone who, or even a Rashford, someone who's just going to get that ball and just run.
Yeah.
But we got the goal. That game, to be fair, could have been 3, 4, 5 goals, but we got the job done. But then we've seen the stats, and I think me and Albert were shocked when I was reading them because they're actually the same, they're identical.
We'll bring them up there.
And I was like, "What the? Nah, this that." Do you know when you see the eye test and then you see stats?
Yeah,
this is the true definition of don't look at stats because it did not tell you the story.
No, it's true. I'll tell you what, we've got a very special guest in the background. Before we bring him in, gonna give him a nice little intro because he deserves it. He's like a little brother, not a brother from another mother. Let me give him the intro. I'm gonna bring him in now. Rowan.
Oh yeah.
Good to see you, man. For a long time, man. I'm buzzing to get you on, bro. How you been?
Yeah, really good. It's been a while, hasn't it? I think it's nearly been a year since I last came on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just before this last season starting, giving predictions before that campaign. So yeah, it's good. It's good to be back.
No, it's good to get you on, man. First, I want to say congratulations to you for your opportunity with the weekly column for at Arsenal Review. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
massive respect to you. Yeah, I had a peek at it, man. I'm trying to move home.
Yeah,
new job. Read your stuff. Do Souls' stuff. JC stuff. Everybody's YouTube stuff. Like, it's hard. It's hard to keep up. But no, much respect to you, Rowan, man. Massive applaudits to you, man. And I know you've got your own channel. To give it a plug, man. Where can the guys find you?
Yeah, like I said, my handle for Twitter is the one that's on Sharon RJ Arsenal blog. I also do YouTube now and then. I've not been able to be really productive because I've been focusing on writing, but I will try and put more videos up. And that's just the same handle, but instead of the B, it's a V. So it's RJ Arsenal vlog.
No, much for it. Yeah, so much cool, but I wanted to pick your brains, mate. Sort of from a tactical side of it. So the first thing I want to sort of ask you, mate, is why do you think England was so kind of effective in nullifying Croatia, stroke stopping Croatia in them having an impact in the game? What did you sort of analyze from it when you're watching England play, mate?
Do you know what? Firstly, I don't. When the international friendlies come out, I don't watch much of England. I tend to watch a lot of the games where you see some of the younger gems from other countries come through. Yeah. And so I don't really watch too much of England. I've watched a couple of the games just before the Euros, and I wasn't really that impressed. But I think that was one of Southgate's best performances as an England manager. I think he was really good yesterday. And I'm not a massive fan of Southgate, but I think
you're not the only one, Bray.
I'm a man of you. I believe in, even if you don't rate someone, you should give them credit if they do something right. And I think he did really well. And I think what it was is you heard Mason Mount after the game as well. And it's something I picked up on during the game. And it was the counter press. And whenever Croatia got the ball in midfield within their own half, the likes of Modric, Brozovic and Kovacic, these are three players who are really technical. They're just really good at just ball retention, recycling the play, and just generally having control of the game. And from an opposition point of view, that's really frustrating because you want to have the ball. And when you have players like that and they're just able to kind of recycle possession, it's really difficult. But I think what England did really well is that whenever Modric or Brozovic or Kovacic received possession, they were aggressive, particularly Calvin Phillips, who had a really good game. He just didn't give them any time and space on the ball. And especially a player like Modric, even though he's moving towards the end of his career, he's still a really good player. And if you give him time and space, he will hurt you. And they were just so aggressive. And I think it kind of nullified the tempo that Croatia would have wanted to play at. And I think that was the best part of that first 30 minutes from England, because it was just winning the ball back quickly, sustaining pressure, and just pegging them back. Even though there weren't many opportunities, there was obviously the Foden chance and there was the Sterling one as well. But it was just, I like the way that England controlled the game. And before the game, I actually thought that Croatia would dominate the game. So, I think, yeah, it was really good from Southgate. I think a bit before the game, when we saw the lineups come out, and I was questioning, particularly the left back selection when he had Trippier playing there.
Because the whole country was, mate. Trust me.
Yeah, and Trippier's had a really good season for Atletico Madrid, but he's been playing predominantly at right back, and he's also played a few games, I think, on the right side of midfield. And he had two players in Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell who are naturally left-footed and are fullbacks who've had very good seasons. I think Luke Shaw, even though he's kind of tailed off towards the end of the season, in terms of consistency and influence for their club, I think he's been the best left-back this season across the league. Ben Chilwell's been really good for Thomas Tuchel. So it was surprising to see that. And in my head, whenever you see, obviously, when you see formations come out and the way that a team's going to set up, you see a 4-2-3-1 or 4-3-3. It's never really like that. It changes a lot when you have the ball and when you don't have the ball. And in my head, I had it as England would build with a back three. They would have Walker drop back. They would have the two centre-backs in Stones and Mings. And then they'd have a double pivot of Phillips and Rice. And Trippier would go forward. You'd have Sterling there. You'd have Mount just roaming between the lines. You'd have Kane up top. And you'd have Foden on the opposite side. But it was weird because what it was actually, it was Walker still played his normal position of dropping deep. But it was Trippier who didn't overlap. He was actually tucking inside with Declan Rice. And it was Phillips who played a lot higher than I thought he would have. And you had Mount on the opposite side. And you obviously had Sterling and Foden out wide with Kane up top. So I felt that it was, from a balance perspective, I didn't really like it because there was no real natural width. But they played really well, particularly in midfield, like I said, in terms of nullifying Croatia, and the way Phillips in particular was just so aggressive on the ball, off the ball, and on the ball, he was brilliant.
Can I just add to his last point?
Go on.
In terms of the width, I think that was a deliberate choice by Southgate, because one of the things that even on the watch along we were discussing is how good they are down the middle. Because if you think about it, down the wings, they're not that effective. I mean, they've got Ivan Perisic, who's not the paciest of players. They've not got a lot of pace in their team, so you don't necessarily need to worry about it too much. Yeah, Perisic is a very gifted, skillful, flary player on his day. But the one thing that I was looking at, especially with Modric at Madrid, in his other, sort of just national games as well. The minute you give Modric space, that's when Croatia start to play their football. And the one thing that Croatia like to do, and I'm not saying they do it as good, but they've got a very good imitation of the sort of tiki-taka football, the one-touch, quick passing, let's control the tempo of the game, especially in the middle. So I think Southgate's naturally gone for a more narrow team just to try and compact that midfield to allow it so that there's no space for them. But I didn't think, to be honest with you, the best thing that Bielsa's done is give us Phillips for that one game. Now, obviously, let's see how that transpires in other games. But the energy he gave us was the key reason to why, because Modric was like, you know what, I want to pack my bags and go home because this guy's not letting me play my football. Because you could see it, the Modric literally just about touched the ball, and Phillips was bang, bang, every single time he was in. And then if Phillips wasn't there, it was Rice. If Rice wasn't there, it was Mount. If Mount wasn't there, Sterling done a few things. And this is the thing, and I think this is why when people say, oh, now that I look at it, I actually don't think the Grealish exclusion is that big of a deal, because his defensive work actually isn't that great. I'm not saying he doesn't help, he just doesn't help enough. And I think it was a good team, because the only other issue is Foden doesn't do it enough as well. He doesn't track back enough either. But I think on an attacking sense, and I think just to keep it narrow, to keep it into a midfield battle, I think that's why he done it. That's why he went with Mount and Foden, because they're naturally going to come inside. And Sterling was always going to be that player who's going to just be on the edge. Like, what Son's been doing for Spurs. It was very reminiscent of the Spurs football that was played under Mourinho. The reason why it works so well was because the quality of players we have in comparison to a Højbjerg and Eric Dyer being the two pivots, it worked really well because the energy was there. Rice was very disciplined. He didn't, lose his positioning, lose his man. And that's what allowed us to, I know the stats don't say it, but that's what allowed us to kind of control the game in a sense. And allow us to make our attacks happen. But the only issue that I had was how deep Kane was playing. Because if Kane played further forward, I think we would have been able to open them up a little bit more. And that's the only qualm, like looking at that game, that I've got.
So good. You led me onto it nicely, actually. Yes, Jason, I'm going to come to you, mate, before I come back to Rowan again. Just going to pose another question to you. Like from an offensive point of view, what did you make of Sterling's performance, and also what Sol's touched on, Harry Kane's performance? I saw a bit of a mixed bag in terms of reaction going by social media, which I don't tend to always go by. If I'm honest with you, you trust your own set of eyes. But yeah, what did you sort of make of Kane's performance in particular? Let me give you a bit of context before you come to that, because obviously when the two warm-up games with Austria and who's the other team?
Romania, was it?
That's they made reference in the studios, Keane and Ian Wright, and I think it was who's the other? But I think it's Ashley Cole at the time was talking about Kane coming too deep. What was your thoughts on sort of Sterling's performance? Was it justified, and Harry Kane?
Well, if you go back on the Premier League season, I think a lot of people were shocked to see Sterling's inclusion yesterday. Me included. To be honest with you, when you look at someone like Rashford, who's been fairly consistent this year, playing from the left, Sterling again, Champions League final. A lot of people were wondering why he was selected in the Champions League final for City. He loves playing for England. That's the problem. He loves playing for England. He is a very consistent performer in an England shirt. And he started okay. I think the first 20, 25 minutes of the game, I was surprised that England weren't 2-0 up. And Sterling was a big part of that from the left-hand side. Really fast, strong start from England. Yes, we finished the half strong. And then towards the end of the game, he kind of withered away, hence why he was brought off. Kane, on the other hand, I think the system that we played yesterday, with the way that Sterling and Mount doubled up on the left-hand side and the way Foden was coming in from the right, it really took away what Kane does for Spurs. He likes to drop deep sometimes. We know that. And he didn't do it as much as he normally done. He was non-existent yesterday for me. The only thing that he did was when he came in at the back post and then he scored and hurt himself. That was the closest he came to a goal. When you look at other options, should he have come off because he's wearing the armband? Should he have come off sooner? Probably. Yeah. You've got other options on the bench. But I think there's going to be a big question mark now over Kane moving forwards, unless he gets a goal in the next game against the so-called smaller, not as stronger teams. Yeah,
Scotland, the Tartan Army, yeah.
With all respect to him, he should be scoring against, your Scotlands, your Czech Republics and stuff. And there's some big boys that play for the Czech Republic as well. It's going to be a physical battle.
Big team, man. Physical team, yeah.
Kane is a physical player. But he didn't do enough for me yesterday to justify selection. You got someone like Calvert-Lewin, he's waiting, chomping at the bit to get into this England side. He's just as physical, strong in the air, fast. He offers something slightly different to Kane. He sits on the last shoulder. He'll get in behind defences. So some question marks over the next few days.
No, good points, man. It's big game now after obviously Scotland's result today. Actually, strange game. Actually, I didn't see all of it, I must admit, but Scotland just not ruthless. Had a lot of chances, man. And that's what happens. But yeah, for real. So no, I want to come back to you, mate. Sorry, quickly. Did you see when you watched that game, England's game on Sunday? Did you see any? I know England got a clean sheet, which is very, very good. And like Sol's mentioned at the top of the stream, that this is England's first win in an opening game in European Championship history. But did you see anything defensively from England on Sunday that would concern you going forward into the next few games or in the tournament? Did you spot anything at all, individually or collectively?
I think judging from yesterday's game, it's kind of difficult because I think, like I said, England nullified Croatia massively in terms of clear-cut opportunities. But I do worry about the centre-back partnership between in the absence of Harry Maguire, because I think with Maguire is you notice someone's influence when they're not there. And when you look at United, when they play this season, and he gets a lot of stick. And I think that's more down to the price tag that we paid for him. But when you see them without Harry Maguire, they struggle to progress forward from the back. And he's a player who, although he doesn't look very, it's not very glamorous in terms of the way he brings the ball out, but he is progressive. He is progressive. And again, I think Harry Maguire is a big loss for England. And replacements, I think, in the squad to play a back four, I'm not convinced. You know, you look at Tyrone Mings, for example. Yeah. He's not a bad defender, but for me, I think that when you look at some of the centre backs that have been left at home, and there's one in particular who I just don't understand how he's not being given opportunities, is Lewis Dunk. Now, Tyrone Mings is a player who I think he's got selected because he's left-footed massively. And balance. As that sounds, but the modern game, the managers like to have their centre backs in the correct positions where they're passing in more favourable areas. You know, with they prefer a left-footed centre back to play on the left and a right-footed centre back to play on the right. And I think that's why Mings was brought into the team. But I think he has made a lot of mistakes this season for Aston Villa, and it's Konsa who's the one who's kind of outshone him. And when you look at John Stones, I think John Stones has had a really good season. I think he deserves a lot more recognition. But John Stones, the reason why I think he's performed really well is because he's had that leader next to him in Ruben Diaz. And even though he's only 23 years of age, but Ruben Diaz has been playing in the Champions League for Benfica. He's also been playing regularly in the Portuguese league. Whatever we think about the league, he's still been winning 100%. Titles. And he's had a massive influence. And I think John Stones is a good secondary centre-back. He's not one of those guys to lead the back line. And I don't see Tyrone Mings as a player who gives you enough qualities to be next to him. So that I do worry from that about it from an individual perspective. And going back to the player, I think Lewis Dunk, he should be in the squad for me. I think he's really underrated because when you look at Lewis Dunk throughout Brighton, when he was under Chris Hughton, he was exceptional in what was more of a defensive system, where you're just there to be an out-and-out defender. Graham Potter's came into the club and he's changed the culture of the football club where they play a more attacking brand of football. And you have to be comfortable on the ball. And Lewis Dunk has had no problem. He's had no problem with making that transition. And I think he would be suited to the way England play, particularly in the absence of Maguire. I know Cody, I like Cody. I think he's more suited for a back three. Exactly. And we've not really seen enough of him in a back four to say he should be playing for England and partnering John Stones in the absence of Maguire. So I worry in terms of the partnership at centre-back. Full-back-wise, I know Walker didn't have a very good game on the ball, but he's a player you can rely on, I think, defensively, because he's such a good athlete. I think if you look at the last 10 years in the Premier League, best right-backs, most consistent right-backs, I think Walker's been the best, along with, you could say, Azpilicueta or Zabaleta, for example.
His pace gets him out of a lot of situations, man.
Exactly, it's the pace and it's the athleticism, isn't it? And he's so strong as well. Every time Perisic didn't have much time on the ball in the game, but whenever he did face Walker in a 1v1, Walker dealt with it. So he's got those qualities defensively. Left-back-wise, it's a difficult one. It depends on who he selects. I think Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell are two solid options to go with. Trippier. Trippier is again. I don't like the dynamic of him playing through the left, and it just ruins the balance for him because there's a few occasions in that first half where you saw him overlap at times, and you had Sterling, Mount, and Trippier all within close proximity to each other, and they all want to come inside. No one wants to hold the width and stretch the play. So offensively, I'm not too keen on him there, and defensively, I think Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell would be better options through the left. So I think in terms of personnel, it's a slight worry if they play better opposition. But I think if you look at the next two games against Czech Republic and Scotland, I don't think we have to worry about it too much.
Yeah, no, well said. No, good points, Ryan. Quality. Jason, I'm going to come to you quickly. I mentioned it yesterday on the live stream with Souls and Ross and big up RJ Wills, and I said, with Croatia, I was actually quite disappointed with what I saw, I'll be honest with you, because I know they've lost Mandzukic to retirement and Rakitic and Subotic, the goalkeeper, who's there for a number of years. But some of their younger boys have actually stepped up in terms of, I was surprised Rebic started down the middle for them. I thought Petkovic was going to start because I think he would have given England more of an issue physically. I'm not
Physically,
saying
yeah,
Rebic can't do that, but yeah, he would have given them more of a. I think Orsic might have been injured because even when me and Sol's looking on the bench, like we can't see him there. Vlasic has done pretty well. I think he's at CSKA. None of those guys started. Yes, you know, Croatia and Asian team, but I was disappointed with them. But what did you make of them? But obviously, giving credit to England because they did play pretty well throughout the whole 90 minutes.
Yeah, they were okay. I was surprised at how the game started, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah, I was.
You know, the way, as I mentioned a moment ago, you know, England come flying out the blocks in the first sort of 20, 25 minutes, completely dominated that part of the game. And I wasn't expecting it. And when we didn't score, I think most England fans knew at some point, given the technical players they have in midfield especially, that they were going to eventually grow into the game. And you could see them slowly taking control of possession. They weren't in any rush. And at this point, it's 0-0. So, you know, there's no real need to force the game. I think in the second half as well, they were much better in the second half than the first half. They were very, very unlucky. There were a few instances where they came very, very close. I don't think stats tell the full story.
Keep talking. I'm going to get them up on the screen for audio listeners. I will put this on Spotify. Yeah, Sol's mentioned it earlier, and I'm sure Rowan agree. Like it sometimes aesthetically looking at a game when you see the stats, you think this don't make sense. Sorry, JC, go on, mate.
No, you're absolutely right. And to be fair, you know, when you look back at it, you know, had we have been, I know it wasn't the case, but had we have been playing against, you know, a France or a Germany or a better side, you just kind of wonder, you know, had we have not taken our chances, which we didn't in the first half, how much of more of a different game, you know, it would have been. And going back to 2018, when we didn't take our chances, Croatia did punish us and we were knocked out of the World Cup. So, you know, it's got to be a bit of a wake-up call to England, if you ask me. However, you know, winning the opening game and building momentum is absolutely huge in these competitions. I fully expect Croatia to win their next two games, though. I'd be very, very surprised if they didn't still go through.
No, well said. Solzy, think of a question. I'm going to ask Rowan another question. I'm going to probably get JC's thoughts as well. But before I do that, people, you should know what to do by now. And there you have it once again, people. Follow my esteemed guests. As you can see, the Twitter handles are along the screen, going along the bottom and in the picture display. Don't think about it, people. Just go and do it now. But yeah, Rowan, so I wanted to ask you, what was I going to ask you now? I've gone out of my head. No, it wasn't. You've touched on it already anyway. But what impressed you most about the England display and the midfield display in particular? And before you answer that, I'll give my sort of two pennies. I mean, I saw the kind of, I think it was the end of the game when they were sort of reviewing the game, and they showed a lot of the picture graphics and diagrams of the way the England midfield were in sync, particularly out of possession of the ball, which was brilliant. I thought Mount, Rice, and Phillips were exceptional. The minute Modric got the ball on him throughout the whole entire 90 minutes, brilliant. But yeah, I won't say what impressed you, but in particular with Phillips, I think what's quite interesting, all of you guys would have seen it, and you're going to see it through the rest of the tournament, right? Where any player that has a good game, and this is not disrespectful to Phillips. Someone's laughing because he knows what I'm going to say. Oh, I'd have him at Arsenal. I definitely want that player at Arsenal. The guy that scored 2 goals today for the Czech Republic, want him at Arsenal. Like Arsenal fan, I'll be mad, but I'm trying to keep away from Arsenal for the minute. But yeah, what impressed you, sort of, Rowan, particularly about the midfield display? Because I'll be honest with you, off the top of my head, and I've seen a lot of England displays in major tournaments, I don't recall a midfield being that disciplined and pressing that well.
I completely agree, and that's why I think Southgate deserves a lot of credit in terms of the way he utilised those midfielders. Like I said, I think with the counter press, that was the point I made earlier. But if we look at it from an individual perspective, Declan Rice, there wasn't much recognition from him yesterday, and I think sometimes players, when they don't it's not glamorous. They don't get much recognition. And I think Declan Rice, what he did yesterday was just a simple but effective job in terms of just providing that shield to those two centre-backs. And also what he did really well, I noticed it in the second half, is that his awareness defensively was really good, where there were a few moments where Croatia managed to get cutbacks into the box, and he positioned himself in areas where he could just nullify those cutbacks, prevent it from reaching Croatia players in the box. And I think that was really good. And just generally, that kind of performance from Declan Rice is something he's been doing throughout the whole of last season for West Ham. You know, just quietly going about his business. He wasn't given that much license to go forward, but the role that he did was just brilliant, I think. And yeah, I think Declan Rice, he didn't get much recognition, but I thought he did a really good job yesterday. Calvin Phillips is a player that I really like. Now, there's a lot of people don't really rate him, and that's fair enough. But
for me, which is crackers. Yeah. If you've seen him play for the last 2-3 years.
I know. I mean, when you look at Leeds, now Leeds have been one of the most entertaining teams this season in the Premier League for me, in terms of the way how fluid they are in an attacking sense. And he is such a key player. I think he's their most important player, along with Patrick Bamford up top, because of the way he picks the ball up from the two centre-backs, the way he sprays passes to the wide areas, and also he threads the ball between the lines more centrally. It's just, he allows them to progress forward. And you notice Leeds, in terms of their build-up play and the way they go forward, and how it's not as smooth without Calvin Phillips. And there's two games that I remember off the top of my head for Leeds last season. It was Brighton, where they played them at the Amex Stadium, and Brighton completely dominated them in that game. And it was the first time I saw this season where Leeds really struggled on the ball. And then the other game was against us, and both those games were in the absence of Calvin Phillips, and they just struggled to kind of press 100%. Forward. And that's why I keep saying there's certain players, you notice their influence a lot more when they're not there. And I think he's another one where you see Leeds this season, statistically as well, there's a big drop-off in terms of their performances and the results when he's not there. But like I said before, what really surprised me yesterday was how advanced he was, and
100%.
How influential he was in the attacking third. You know, he nearly got that goal early on as well, tenacious off the ball. And I don't think people realise how good he showed in that goal in the build-up for Sterling. The movement initially, and then the weight of pass and the timing of the pass to put Sterling through. It was brilliant, and I think it just capped off a really good performance from him. And he's a player who is going to be difficult to drop now in the next couple of games. But I'll talk about it later. But there's something that I think Southgate's got a bit of a dilemma as well now with his performance. I'll talk about that later. And Mason Mount, now, this guy, I'm honestly telling you, he doesn't have bad games. He is one of the most incredible players I've seen this season. Last year, I didn't rate Mason Mount that much. I didn't really look too much into him. But I remember there was one person, an analyst, told me, watch Mason Mount a lot closer. And believe me, he is such a talent. And he is. Yeah. He is one of the most complete midfielders in the Premier League. He's good between the lines. He can receive the ball in the half term. He's good in a deep position. He can influence the game in the final third. He presses well. He makes the right decisions. His weight of pass. He's got everything. And yesterday, again, it was another good performance from Mount. He was really good in the final as well. And he's another one I think you can't drop in this England team as well. And yeah, that's the midfield three, isn't it? All played really well. I think they were key in terms of why Croatia didn't have the kind of game that they would have envisaged. And like I said before the game, I generally did think Croatia would be the team in control, and it'll be England more on the back foot. But it was the opposite, wasn't it? So
100%.
Fair play to the midfield and fair play to Southgate.
No, well said, Rob. Good breakdown, man. I mean, it just showed to the audio listeners. I just showed the heat map of Calvin Phillips, and yeah, it's pretty impressive, to be honest. And so I was going to bring you in, Brake, because I know you might have wanted to field a question to Rowan and JC, bro. So fire away, mate.
Do you know, now that we've seen, obviously, this whole sort of what we can call a new system from Southgate, obviously this sort of 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3, however you kind of want to interpret it, because it does transition a lot. Do you think this is the sort of system that we now need to move forward with, or do you think a 3-4-3 system against the so-called bigger teams, such as the Italy's, your sort of France, Germany's, you know, or whoever you think is one of the more favourites to win the tournament? Do do you think he needs to revert back to a sort of a 3-4-3 or however you interpret the formation? I think that's what my question would be. I'll throw it to you. Go on, JC first.
Good question, man.
I think moving forward, I'd be very surprised if he changes it now. I think given the options he's got at the back, unless Maguire gets fit, but then you would argue that maybe you would play Kyle Walker as the right centre-back, maybe, and Mings as the left centre-back with Stones in the middle, potentially, if Maguire isn't fit. There's plenty of options at right back and left back for that system to work.
Yeah.
But then potentially, who do you lose in midfield? Do you go a Declan Rice and a Phillips, and then maybe lose Mount because you want more kind of natural wide players in a front three potentially? Loads of questions, but I can't see him changing it now. I think
Good question.
He has to stick to what he does. When you look at the four defensive players potentially, you've got, taking yesterday as an example, you've got Mings and Stones, and then you've got Rice and Calvin Phillips. They could easily drop into a four. Either one of those two midfield players could drop into a left or a right back position, whilst the full-backs bomb forward and offer a little bit more width, with someone like Sterling tucking in, for example. So when you look at the options out wide as well, if you've got someone like a Grealish who might play a little bit more narrow, or a Sancho that might play a bit more wider on the right, there's definitely options. I'd stick to a 4-3-3 personally.
Good shout. Good. Yeah, you know what? Before Rowan comes to that, you know what? The thing is, I think most people probably said it was Southgate. He has got an embarrassment. He has got an embarrassment of riches in terms of the attacking outlet, and obviously his midfield players as well. But yeah, so Rowan, coming to you, this obviously solves the question. What's your thoughts, mate?
I think you need to be pragmatic in an international tournament, personally. And I think particularly when you look at some of the players that England have along their back line, particularly when they have a couple of injuries, I don't think if England played against Germany or a France or a Portugal, for example, which is likely because I think England will win their next two games and I think they'll finish top. So that means they play one of those sides, unless Hungary do something. It's going to be one of those teams. So I think in that game, it's essentially not on England to impose themselves. I think they can sit deep, they can remain resolute, and I would go over back five in that game personally, because it's a system that England have played a lot in the friendlies. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think a lot of the friendlies that I've seen last year, they played that back five, and only recently they moved to a four. So I think that's something that I would do in the bigger games. But when you're playing against the lesser opposition, and for example, teams like Scotland, I didn't watch the game today. I didn't manage to catch it, but so I can't really tell you much about that. But essentially, Scotland are a team, they're going to sit back. They're going to allow England to have the ball. And I think when you're playing against a team like Scotland, you can be a little bit more expansive and you can bring in a Grealish and replace one of the players in the pivot. But this is the thing. It's a bit of a dilemma Southgate has now, because Calvin Phillips played so well on Sunday. And Declan Rice, for me, is undroppable. He has to play because of the role that he does for the team. Yeah. So I would look to definitely try and bring in a Grealish in the lesser games, because if you look at the way England played yesterday, the fullbacks didn't overlap predominantly. They tucked inside. So you have that kind of solidity when you don't have the ball anyway with Declan Rice. Then instead of a Phillips, for example, I'm not saying I would drop him, but you could bring in a Grealish and you could have a Mount. And then you could have two wide players, and then you could have Kane up top. Or if you're not a fan of Kane, then you could have a Calvert-Lewin. So I think it's all about being pragmatic. In games where England have to dominate, you can be a little bit more expansive. But in games where you're playing against teams where they can seriously hurt you, I think there's no harm in being a little bit more pragmatic and cautious. And then I think you can play more runners into the team. You can bring more runners. Maybe a Rashford could come into the side as well, because there's spaces there to exploit, And so I think it just depends on the opposition. And I wouldn't stick with one system. I would move between playing a back five and also playing the four. I think what's worth mentioning is that regardless of whether you play a back five or a four, predominantly your in possession shape doesn't really change much. It's when you're defensively moving back in the back five, you move into like a 5-4-1. In like yesterday, for example, they played a 4-3-3 on paper, but then when they were defending, they moved into a 4-4-2. So I think it's mainly down to your shape out of possession, and that kind of dictates the formation. So it just depends on the opposition. I wouldn't be sticking with just one and going with that for no matter who you're playing.
Holly's a Tottenham fan. I love her, but we should hate each other really. But big up Holly in the chat. Go subscribe to the channel, people. Guys, we've got one more question to ask my amazing panel before we go. Rowan, great to get you on. JC, great to get you on, man. It's been a long time. I knew when I was going to do this Euro 2020 content that you two are definitely going to be asked to come on, man, and gladly your schedule and your calendars and home life allowed you to come on. So no, I appreciate it. So yeah, it's a double loaded question to all of you, including my fantastic co-host. If any changes for the Scotland game on Friday, what personnel do you think will come in, and a score prediction? I'm going to go to my co-host for that first.
That's a tough one.
It's a tough one.
I think just on the basis, because for me, I think in the England setup, you need a striker to be the striker and not to drop too deep. And unless Kane somehow does manage to change that habit of his from dropping deep, if he can't do it, I'll drop him. And I'll
do you think Grealish will come in?
He can, because I managed to catch the Scotland game. I was at work, but I was kind of watching it, kind of doing my own work and stuff. But when the thing is, they've got a 3-man midfield. Then they play a 5-back, so they're playing a 5-3-2 in essence. Their width is literally their wing backs, and that's it really. So when you start to think about it, Tierney didn't play today, so I'm not sure what the reasonings behind that was. I don't know whether they're looking to sparingly use him, or I don't know what that. It was a mad decision not to play him, but they lost, which is good for us. It means there's less pressure on us when it comes to that game. I do think you can play a Grealish in this over me, but then that would be Foden being dropped for me, because I think Mount.
That would be the
obvious one.
decision. It is. Yeah.
The only reason I say that and not Mount being dropped is because they've got a 3-man midfield. They are very sort of solid in the middle. They overload the middle of the pitch. So you do need that energy still being there. That midfield can't change for me. Mount, Phillips and Rice have to play. That is the midfield that's going to win that game for us. And then I'd probably play Calvert-Lewin just for the reason he doesn't drop deep and he plays as a striker. There's too many. Scotland have got way too many players in the middle for Kane to also drop deep and also compact and congest. And all he's going to do is get in the way. He's not going to do anything productive. He's going to be another ghost in a game. And the only other change, I think Trippier needs to go to right back, and I'd bring Luke Shaw in. The reason why I say that is because the chances are that it's going to be Robertson and Tierney that are going to play on that left-hand side.
Yeah.
In a way of, obviously, Tierney plays on that left centre-back, and then obviously Robertson plays as the wing-back. And I do think against England, he'll come to his senses and probably play that, because today they looked lost. They had no leadership. They had no organisation. And this isn't a dig at Robertson, but it was just simply the truth of what I've seen. They looked all over the place. And
yeah, the first half wasn't good, man.
Yeah, and I do think he will bring in Tierney just to hopefully solidify that sort of defensive shape, because he can do it. He's a very good leader. He's commanding. He's someone who's going to be vocal and ask for a lot, and he's passionate, so he's going to want to do well. And to be fair, Tierney and Robertson are the sole reasons why Scotland are doing really well. So he's probably going to bring the two back in. So that's why I'd want Trippier, who's naturally, to be honest, my preferred choice is Reece James coming in. He's a lot more balanced, and I think he's got a lot more more to his game. He can attack, but he's a very solid defensive fullback as well. So that's who I would pick. But knowing Southgate, he's probably going to go with Trippier, which is fine. He can do the job. But I think Luke Shaw is the one who needs to come in, because Luke Shaw will be coming on against their right-hand side, which isn't that great. And if you can overload that right-hand side with let's just say hypothetically it's Luke Shaw, and give it to Raheem Sterling, because I don't think he'll be dropped after scoring a goal.
No.
That will be really difficult for them to deal with, because Robertson and Taney are going to be on the other side of the pitch, which is going to be the tougher half to break. And I think a lot of our attacks need to come down our left-hand side, their right-hand side. So that's where we're going to break them. To do that, we're going to whip in a lot of crosses, which is why I want Calvert-Lewin over Harry Kane. But they're the changes I would make, and I hope he makes, because when we look at Scotland tactically, I think that's the best approach to take. Like I said, you don't have to drop Kane if he's going to stick to his position as a striker. Then you can more than welcome to play him. But if he's not willing to do that, or for whatever, I don't know whether it's Southgate telling him or it's just sort of his instincts to do it. If he can't get over it, then it has to be, we need a striker playing that game.
Well said. So, score prediction, mate. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Scotland, so I want to batter them. I'm going to say 4-0. I just want to annihilate. That's the one game, yeah. I think it's just self-pride. I hate losing derbies. I hate losing to rivals. And, yeah, it's just one of those, man. 4-0. I don't even care.
4-0. Jesus Christ, mate. Right. JC, what about you, bro?
Yeah, what I want and what we get are two different things, but we all know 100%. That as football fans, unfortunately. It's so horrible, isn't it? But I do agree with the Foden-Grealish change. Whilst Foden started the game, really well yesterday, as the game went on, he didn't have as much of an influence. Not the influence that we've seen him have for City this season. But in saying that, Foden could then be a very good option off the bench to change a game, to influence a game, against tired legs, for example. But I'd love to see Grealish. I don't think he's going to drop Kane. He's captain. But it could be his last chance. If Kane doesn't do the business up top against Scotland, it certainly raises question marks over his selection for the third game. So will he use that as motivation? He needs to. I can't see him changing the midfield three. As Rowan said, you can't drop Calvin Phillips after his last game, and Declan Rice, that job that he does in midfield, there isn't another player in midfield that can do that for England in this 26-man squad. For me, at left back, I would choose Chilwell, only because Mount, he veers over to the left more than the right-hand side, and I think that link-up play between Chilwell and Mount, as we've seen throughout the season, could be really, really, really good. And the way that they could exploit spaces, given how much Scotland push forward with their fullbacks. There's going to be big gaps potentially on the counter for England to exploit. And then, Trippier didn't necessarily have a bad game compared to Walker, so you'd probably, push him over to the right-hand side. I can't see him changing the centre-back pairing. We kept a clean sheet against Croatia, so I don't think he's going to make too many changes.
Good shout. Score prediction, JC, bro?
2-0.
Yeah, you might have been on the sauce, man. I know Scotland, you don't rate Scotland. I don't think it'll be 4-0. I'll be shocked if it is. I apologise if it will be.
I did say it's my score prediction, isn't it? Yeah, that's what I
Raheem Sterling might score 4, innit? No, so Rowan, coming to you, mate, to close the show, bro. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what both Sauls and Jake said as well. I think I really like Foden, but it's one of those things where if Calvin Phillips didn't play that good, I would have taken Phillips out and I would have brought Grealish in. And even though I really like Phillips, but you can't drop someone after a performance like that. Yes, magnificent. So it would have to be Foden if you're looking to put Grealish in. Who I think is a fantastic player. But if you bring Grealish in, I would then move Sterling to the right and I would bring Grealish to the left. Because Grealish, he is... A lot of people want him to play... If he, let's say, hypothetically, he came to Arsenal. It's not going to happen, but I would want Grealish to play through the left as a wide playmaker and coming inside rather than playing centrally predominantly. So I would bring Grealish in to play through the left-hand side, and I would put Sterling out wide on the right, particularly if Walker's just going to tuck inside, because Sterling will give you natural width because he's just going to go on the outside. And then left-back-wise, I would bring Luke Shaw in. I wouldn't mind if Ben Chilwell came in, because I think Ben Chilwell has been really good since Thomas Tuchel's came in. And I think particularly against Scotland, I don't know much about them. I only know much about Robertson and Tierney and obviously players like McTominay. But I think Ben Chilwell gives you potentially better natural width, particularly because he's been playing in a wing-back system for Chelsea where you're tasked to be a really offensive-minded. But one of those two, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't play Kieran Trippier. I would keep Walker at right back as well. I'm a big fan of Walker personally. I think Mings will keep his place. Stones will play. So I don't think there'll be many changes personally. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually doesn't change anything. He sticks with the same team.
Sure.
So, and also the Harry Kane point, I think it's a really good point you make, where I don't understand why he's dropping so deep, because you had Calvin Phillips and Mount in that space where you have your striker drop deep anyway. So they were picking up the ball in that space anyway. So Kane could have stayed further forward. Whereas for Tottenham, when they were under Mourinho, the system was effectively Kane dropping in, allow the fullbacks to go forward, and allow Son or Moura to attack those spaces that Kane vacates. But in this system, he doesn't need to do that. So I didn't understand that. I think Kane's a player that won't be dropped. It's too much of a big decision, isn't it, really, to drop someone like Kane. So, I don't think there'll be many changes. I think the only one I would probably make is Grealish and bring Luke Shaw in. And in terms of prediction, I don't think it'll be 4-0. But I think Scotland, they're not a great team, but they're playing against England, so their levels are going to raise instantly. There's certain games for certain teams where there's more pride at stake. So no doubt it's going to be tough. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be 2-1 to England. I think they'll scrape it.
Good shout, Scott. You know what it is.
True. Don't laugh. Sorry. Just respect me in it when my prediction comes through.
No, I won't laugh. You know what it is.
Croatia was going to get a draw yesterday, and I thought they were going to dominate the game. So it's one of those things. It's a prediction, isn't it? So
no, it's true. No, I do know the Scotland game. I even before the tournament started. Some people are very dismissive. England would roll over Scotland. Like Scotland, it's one of the better Scotland teams that I've seen for quite a few number of years, and I'm sure the guys who are going to come on Wednesday, James Rowe, Adam McFadden, and Kieran coming on from CFB. So they're a bit. You know what? They're a better. Listen, they're a better side than what people want to give them credit for, despite what they might have seen today. Lyndon Dykes is a handful. You got Fraser, you got Christie. Obviously, we know about Tierney and Robertson. You got Scott McMayo in the middle, as they call him. They got John McGinn. They've got some ball. They've got some players in there, So
Jake McAdams now as well, isn't it?
Yeah, they've got Chadens. He's not big in terms of probably height wise, but he does offer you something physically, which he could potentially bully the centre halves. Yeah,
a good aerial threat though. Yeah,
he came on as a half-time sub today. Yeah,
he didn't start.
Yeah, I like Chadens. I think
he's a handful. He is. So I don't think. You know what? I think. Score wise, I'm gonna go England 2-1. I think Scotland will score. And I actually think, you know what, they've actually beaten. No, I can't remember last time they beat England. I have to research that properly. But guys in the chat, thank you for coming to watch the live stream with my fantastic guests. Big up Holly, Ross, Chippy Boy. Who else is in there? JB was in there. Harry's in there. Loads of people's in there. The chat was lively, man. Guys, big up to the panel. Like I said, once again, JC, Rowan, Guna Souls, my co-host. People go and subscribe to their channels and follow them on their Twitter. I will put this on audio on my Spotify and Anchor so you can hear my beautiful voice on the podcast. I have a podcast voice, I'm told. But let me thank my amazing panel. Guna Souls, we'll be back on Wednesday for the preview at 7 o'clock. Like I said, we've got Callum and CFB, got James Rowe, we've got Kieran from CFB as well. Brilliant guys, man. Interviews galore with professional footballers. Great, different take away from the blood and thunder of Twitter. So it's gonna be great to get them on. But
he does really good work. Yeah, I've seen some of the things.
Yes,
he does really.
So so people, if you can tune in, people. I will put the thumbnails out and all the tweets and social media stuff. So make sure you tune in. Souls, where can the people find you, my friend?
Obviously, here Wednesday, 7 o'clock. Don't forget to tune in. You don't have anything else to do, mate. If you've got something, cancel it, because this is where you need to be. So, and then obviously you can find me mainly on Twitter at the moment. I'm not really uploading until something happens, or I might just do like a monthly review thing on Guna Souls on the YouTube channel and on Twitter now as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
No, thanks, Souls. JC, my boy, thank you for coming on, man. It's good to see you, man, my bro, man. Where can the guys find you, my friend? Me. No, of course. Where can the guys find you, my friend?
Yeah, well, you can see my handle that side, whatever side it is. Jake 28 on Twitter. Always talking about Arsenal in England at the moment, just asking fans their opinions on rumours, news, stories. It's just nice to hear what everyone else has to say about Arsenal, and also on YouTube as well, sharing videos of all different types of content, same sort of stuff. So.
Oh, is he gone? Oh, got you. Okay, yeah, no, just broke up there quickly. And last but not least, Rowan, thank you for coming on, man. It's been a long time, man. I know you're a busy guy, man, but appreciate your insight. Brilliant stuff, man. People in the chat chat was lively, man. So where can the guys find you, and what's coming up next for you in terms of your weekly column, bro?
Yeah, firstly, I'm gonna definitely look to come on more YouTube channels now as well. Another channel. I've wanted to do it. It's just it's difficult. Sometimes, you know, like like I don't get time for myself at the time, you know. So it's hard. But the thing is, I love what I do. You know, I love football. I love Arsenal 100%. As well, even though it's really difficult at times. I still miss seeing Arsenal.
It's an understatement.
You know, yeah, in terms of where you can find me, like I said, my Twitter handles there, RG Arsenal blog. Like I said, I do a weekly column now, a column where it's a lot trying to do like the tactical side of the game. Like I'm still learning, I'm not perfect, but I'm just trying to be consistent and just trying to improve as each piece goes. YouTube wise, I will upload more. It's just sometimes it's difficult, you know, to kind of balance.
Take your time, bro. YouTube ain't going anywhere. Take your
time. The same handle. It's just a V instead of the B.
No. Much love for coming on, guys. You show massive support to my channel when I've met you guys at whatever point we did on social media. But yeah, much love to Ryan, man. You always get in when you can and support. And JC, my boy, Soulsy, the new man on town, man, in demand. And people in the chat.
At times he's getting a lot of recognition.
He is as
well.
He is. But no, yes, this is my last stream in my 30s because someone has a certain birthday tomorrow. Happy 40th to myself.
Oh,
so, yeah. So no streaming tomorrow, man. No. So we'll be back Wednesday. Big up to the guys in chat. Like I said, smash the like button. Actually, you know what? Let me do a last little intro before we go. So you guys should know what to do by now. And there you have it, people. That is me, Albert JTV, over and out. # match review. England 1, Croatia 0.